A poor girl offers a painting to a young billionaire. "My mother made this before she passed away. Please buy it. I need the money to feed my little siblings." But when he sees the signature in the corner, he starts to cry. The icy wind stung Thomas's face as he stepped out of the towering steel and glass building that housed his office in the heart of a bustling American city. He pulled his cashmere scarf tighter and buttoned his expensive coat. But the cold he felt came not only from the harsh winter gripping the streets. "Another day, another few million," he murmured to himself, without a trace of joy. Thomas Blake, at 35D, had everything most people dream of: a substantial fortune built in the financial market, a penthouse apartment, luxury cars. Everything, except something that truly mattered. Success tasted like ashes in his mouth. He checked his watch, an exclusive model few could afford, and sighed. Another empty night awaited. Maybe a drink at the hotel bar next door. Maybe just the silence of his apartment. The routine never changed. That was when he saw her. Amid the busy sidewalk, where hurried business people strode by while scrolling through their phones, a small figure stood out, a little girl no more than 5 years old, shivering in the cold. She was barefoot despite the nearly freezing temperature, and held something in her hands. Apparently a painting. Thomas would have kept walking, like everyone else, if not for the strange feeling that made him stop. The girl had dark, curly hair and large eyes that seemed to know more about life than any child should. "Would you like to buy this, sir?" "It's really pretty." Her voice was small but determined. People passed by without noticing her at all. Thomas approached, more out of curiosity than compassion. "What are you selling?" The girl turned the painting around. It was a simple picture of sunflowers, yet strangely vibrant. It wasn't a child's work, it had technique and emotion. "My mom painted it." "She was an artist?" Thomas looked at the signature in the corner, and his heart nearly stopped. Olivia Carter. The name hit Thomas like a punch to the gut. Olivia, his Olivia, the woman he had loved and then abandoned 5 years ago, when his career started taking off and she became an obstacle to his ambitious plans. Was your mother's name Olivia?" he asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. The girl nodded, her eyes, so much like Olivia's, fixed on him. "She passed away 2 months ago." The words were simple, direct, as only a child could say them, but they carried a weight that made Thomas stagger. Gone. Olivia was gone. "I need to sell this painting to buy food," the girl continued. "Lily and Noah are hungry." "Who are Lily and Noah?" "My brother and sister. Lily is 4 and Noah is 2. I'm Estella. I take care of them." Thomas did the math in his head. 5 years. Exactly the time since he had left Olivia. And now this girl, with the same eyes, the same face shape. "Where do you live, Estella?" The girl hesitated. "I can't talk to strangers." Thomas crouched so he was at her eye level. Up close, the resemblance to Olivia was even more striking. "I'm interested in your mum's painting. I can buy it, but I need to know more about it." He paused. "And maybe I can help you and your siblings." Estella studied him with unsettling intensity for someone so young. Her bare feet were red from the cold, and Thomas noticed her thin coat was ripped in several places. $20, she finally said. Thomas pulled out his wallet and took out all the bills he found, several $100s. "Is this enough?" Estella's eyes went wide. "That's a lot of money." "The painting is worth every penny." He wasn't lying. For him, at that moment, it was worth far more. Estella took the money carefully, as though afraid he might change his mind. Then, in a gesture that broke Thomas's heart, she tucked the bills inside the torn shoe she carried in a plastic bag. "May I go with you to your home?" Thomas asked. "So I can meet your brother and sister." Once again, there was that hint of hesitation. Why? "Because," Thomas searched for the words. How could he explain? "Because I think I might be your father. Because I abandoned your mother when she needed me most. Because I feel I have to fix this. Because I'm worried about you." After a moment that felt endless, Estella nodded. "It's all right, but it's far. We can take a cab." "What's a cab?" The innocent question was another revelation for Thomas. This child had never experienced even the most ordinary things most people took for granted. In the taxi, Estella sat up straight, gazing out the window in fascination. She clung tightly to the money as if it were her only lifeline. Thomas watched her profile, noticing every resemblance to Olivia, and some features that might be his own. "Did your mom ever talk about your dad?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Estella didn't take her eyes off the window. "She said he left before I was born, that he had important things to do." The answer cut Thomas like a knife. Those were his exact words to Olivia when he ended their relationship. "I have important things to do, dreams to chase. I can't be tied down right now." Was she sad? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Estella shrugged, an oddly adult gesture. Sometimes she cried when looking at old photos, but she said she had the three of us now, so it was okay. The three of us. Olivia had built a family on her own. The taxi entered a neighborhood Thomas had never set foot in, far from the city's upscale areas. Narrow streets, run-down buildings, cracked sidewalks, a completely different world from his. "Here," Estella said, pointing to a three-story building with peeling paint and broken windows. Thomas paid the driver, who seemed eager to leave, and followed the girl to the entrance. No elevator, just a stairway with broken steps. They climbed 3 flights, the smell of mold and dampness growing with each step. In the dark corridor, Estella stopped in front of a door with no number, just marks where something used to be nailed. She pulled out a key from her coat and struggled to open the door. "I'm back," she announced as she stepped inside. "I brought a man who bought Mom's painting." Thomas stepped in behind her and froze at the sight. The apartment, if you could call it that, was one single room with a tiny area serving as a kitchen. The wallpaper was peeling, the walls stained with damp spots. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a weak glow over the space. In the middle of the floor on a thin mattress sat a fair-haired girl trying to calm a crying baby. Both were thin, wearing old oversized clothes. "Estella, he won't stop crying," said the girl, Lily, her small voice filled with worry. "I think he's really hungry." Little Noah was sobbing, his face red from crying. Even from a distance, Thomas could hear his empty stomach growling. Estella ran to them, pulling the money out of her shoe. "Look, Lily! I sold Mom's painting. Now we can buy food." Lily stared at the money in amazement, then at Thomas suspiciously. She held Noah tighter, as if to protect him. Thomas remained by the door, unable to process the scene. These children, likely his children, living in misery while he dined at Michelin-starred restaurants and slept on silk sheets. "Do you live here alone?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Estella nodded as she organized the bills on a cardboard box that served as a table. "Ever since Mom got sick and never came back from the hospital. No adults taking care of you? No relatives?" Mom said she had a sister, but they weren't on speaking terms and she lives far away. Estella spoke while opening a nearly empty cupboard, which contained only a few cans of food. "Mom taught me how to make porridge for Noah and take care of Lily." Thomas felt nauseous. A 5-year-old responsible for 2 younger children, alone in this unhealthy place, going hungry. "Who is he, Estella?" Lily asked, still holding Noah protectively. "He bought Mom's painting. He gave us a lot of money." Lily studied him with wary eyes. "Did you know our mom?" The direct question made Thomas hesitate. "Yes," he finally admitted. "A long time ago." Noah's crying was growing louder. Thomas looked around, absorbing every grim detail of the apartment. Besides the single mattress on the floor, there were just a few thin blankets, a cardboard box serving as a table, and a smaller one used as a chair. Leaning against the wall were several paintings, all featuring sunflowers, apparently Olivia's final works. There were also photos taped to the wall, showing a thinner Olivia than Thomas remembered, but with the same captivating smile. Arms wrapped around the 3 children. "Estella, you need food right now, don't you?" She nodded, trying to soothe Noah as she held him. "Is there a grocery store nearby?" "On the corner. But sometimes the man won't let me in because he says kids come in alone to steal." Each of her words felt like a stabbing pain. Thomas took out more money from his wallet. "I'll go buy groceries for you. What should I get? Estella thought for a moment. Milk for Noah, bread, and vegetable soup if he has it. Lily likes that. Thomas looked at the 3 children, feeling a mix of compassion and guilt. I'll be right back. I promise. He left the apartment in a hurry, descending the stairs almost at a run. Outside, he stopped for a moment to breathe, trying to calm the dizziness washing over him. Guilt was consuming him. At the small corner grocery store, Thomas filled 2 baskets with food: milk, bread, fruit, vegetables, meat, cereal, crackers. He also bought diapers for Noah and a few basic hygiene items. As he paid, it felt like a strange dream. On a normal day, he wouldn't bother looking at prices or worry about what he was buying. But now, every item seemed crucial. I live around here, he explained to the cashier, who was eyeing the well-dressed man's simple purchases curiously. I'm going to start coming by more often. Back at the building, Thomas climbed the stairs carrying the bags. He knocked gently, and Estella opened almost immediately, as though she had been waiting right there. You really came back? She said, with a hint of surprise in her voice. Thomas walked in and began unloading the bags. Lily watched with wide eyes, still holding Noah, who was crying but more weakly now, as if he had run out of energy. I brought milk for Noah, Thomas said, taking out the bottle. And food for all of you. Estella took the milk and quickly prepared a bottle, moving with surprising efficiency for a child her age. Thomas noticed how she knew exactly what to do, warming the milk on a small, shaky burner, testing it on her hand, filling the bottle. Come on, Noah, she said, taking the baby from Lily's arms. Time to eat. The little one latched onto the bottle eagerly, sucking so hard that Thomas feared he might choke. Slow down, Noah, Estella gently cautioned. There's plenty. Thomas watched, struck by Estella's maturity. It was obvious she'd taken on the caregiver role, probably even before Olivia passed away. Are you hungry, Lily? Thomas asked, holding out a package of crackers. The little girl nodded shyly but didn't move. Thomas opened the package and offered her one, which she took with caution, as if she feared it might be a trick. You can have more, he encouraged. I brought plenty. While Lily ate and Noah drank his milk, Thomas organized the groceries he'd brought. He found a bit of space in the nearly empty cupboard and neatly stacked the cans and packages. He placed the perishable items in a small refrigerator that only worked sometimes, as Estella explained. With Noah calmer now, and Lily eating, Thomas took a moment to observe the children more closely. Lily was fair-haired, with delicate features that resembled neither Olivia nor himself. Noah had light brown hair and big eyes, also lacking any clear resemblance, but Estella was different. Her dark curls, her deep eyes, even the way her brow creased slightly in concentration, everything reminded him of Olivia. Yet there was something else, something Thomas recognized from his own family photos. The shape of the chin, the small but defined nose, traits of the Blakes. The more he looked at her, the surer he became. Estella was his daughter. Sir? Estella's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Are you okay? Thomas blinked, realizing his eyes were damp. Yes, I'm fine. And you can call me Thomas. Toma, she repeated, testing the name. How did you know my mum? The question hung in the air, filled with possibilities. Thomas looked at the 3 children. Noah was now asleep in Estella's arms, exhausted after eating. Lily watched quietly, still nibbling on crackers. We were friends, he finally answered, a half-truth that hurt to say out loud. A long time ago. She never mentioned you, Estella said, furrowing her brow. It was a long time ago, Thomas repeated. Before you were born. Estella seemed to accept this explanation. Thanks for the food. Thomas glanced out the window, realizing evening was closing in. The thought of leaving these 3 children alone in that apartment was unbearable. Estella, you can't stay here all alone, he said, finally giving voice to the thought that had plagued him since he'd walked in. We always do, she replied matter-of-factly. Mum taught us how, but it's not safe. You're all too young. Estella looked at Lily, then at Noah asleep in her arms. For a moment, Thomas glimpsed the fear in her eyes, the fear that he would take them away from her, the fear of losing the only family she had left. "I'm not going to separate you," Thomas reassured her, guessing her thoughts. "But I need to help." "You need an adult." "What are you going to do?" Estella asked, her small voice revealing for the first time just how much of a child she really was beneath her adult responsibilities. Thomas didn't have a clear answer. He only knew he couldn't turn his back. These kids, one likely his daughter, needed him. "First, I'm going to fix you dinner," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Then we'll talk about how I can help permanently." Estella nodded, momentarily relieved to have an adult taking charge, even if just for now. As Thomas moved around the cramped kitchen, putting together a simple meal with the groceries he'd brought, a sense of resolve began growing inside him. These children were now his responsibility. It didn't matter whether all of them were biologically his. He couldn't abandon them. He glanced again at Estella, who was now laying Noah down gently on the mattress to keep sleeping. At 5 years old, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. A wave of determination swept over Thomas. He would fix this. He couldn't change the past or bring Olivia back, but he could at least give these children a future. And maybe, in the process, he could find what had been missing in his own life, a purpose beyond money and hollow success. Thomas left the children's apartment well after 9 at night. Noah was asleep after his meal. Lily was struggling to keep her eyes open, while Estella carefully put away the leftover groceries. He promised to return in the morning, and the hopeful look in Estella's eyes followed him all the way home. Sitting in his luxury car, Thomas pulled out his phone. It was after 10 times, but he knew Marcus would answer. His personal attorney was known for always being available, especially when the call came with a lot of zeros. "Marcus, Thomas Blake." Thomas, what a surprise, having issues with that London acquisition. "No, it's not business." Thomas took a deep breath. "It's personal. I need your advice on a complicated situation." There was a brief silence on the other end. In all their years of professional dealings, Thomas had never called Marcus about something personal. "I'm listening," the lawyer said. Thomas told him everything. Meeting Estella, recognizing Olivia's name, finding the 3 children living alone, his suspicion that Estella was his daughter. "Wait, so you're telling me there are 3 kids, one possibly your biological daughter, living alone without adult supervision, and the mother died 2 months ago?" "Yes. What do I do?" "Legally, I mean. First, you need to confirm paternity. I suggest a DNA test for the older girl, Estella. If she's yours, you have natural rights and obligations. What about the other 2? That's complicated. If they aren't yours biologically, you don't automatically have rights. But if there are no other relatives, you can request temporary custody while we seek a permanent solution." Thomas felt the weight of it all. "And if I want to help them?" Another moment of silence. Thomas could imagine the surprise on Marcus's face. Well, biological connection is generally the deciding factor, unless what? Unless no other relatives come forward for Lily and Noah. In that case, as Estella's guardian, with no one else claiming the other children, you could ask for temporary custody of them too. But it's a complicated process. How long for the DNA confirmation? With my contacts, I can get results in 48 hours. Do it. I'll collect a sample tomorrow. When he hung up, Thomas realized he was making decisions that would change his life forever. Less than 24 hours ago, his biggest worry was the volatility of the financial market. Now he was thinking about DNA tests, child custody, and how to help 3 little ones he barely knew. Back in his luxurious apartment, Thomas felt out of place. The 3,000 square feet of pure luxury, decorated by a renowned designer, now seemed cold and lifeless compared to the tiny, run-down apartment he'd just left. There, despite all its hardships, there was life, Estella, Lily, and Noah. Thomas tossed his expensive coat on the sofa and poured himself a whiskey. He needed to think. His mind wandered back to Olivia. What was it like for her? Pregnant and abandoned. How did she raise 3 kids almost on her own? And more importantly, how did he never know? How did he never bother to find out? The answer was simple and painful. Because he never cared enough. Olivia became just a distant memory, a closed chapter in his climb to financial success. Thomas barely slept that night. By 6 in the morning, he was up and making lists. He left early, determined to buy everything the kids might need. At a department store that had just opened, Thomas loaded several carts: warm blankets, pillows, towels, clothes for the 3 kids in sizes he hoped would fit. He also bought toys, dolls for the girls, cars for Noah, building blocks, colorful books. In the hygiene section, he grabbed children's soap, shampoo, toothbrushes, and diapers. "Shopping for your nieces and nephews?" the sales assistant asked with a smile, seeing all the children's items. Thomas hesitated a second. "Something like that," he replied as he paid, not even looking at the enormous total. Next, he stopped at a supermarket and bought supplies for several days: fruit, vegetables, meat, cereal, milk, juices. He remembered the preferences Estella had mentioned: vegetable soup for Lily, special milk for Noah. Driving back to the kids' apartment, his car loaded with bags, Thomas reflected on how much his life had changed in just one day. For years, he'd focused exclusively on work, on accumulating wealth, on professional achievements. His emotional side had always come second, or rather, been completely ignored. Now, confronted with the reality of these 3 kids, especially Estella, quite possibly his daughter, Thomas felt something he hadn't in a long time: genuine concern for another human being. It wasn't pity or charity, it was deeper, a connection he couldn't explain. Parking near the building, he saw Estella on the sidewalk, anxiously watching the road. When she spotted him, her face lit up with a smile that struck Thomas hard, a smile so much like Olivia's. "You really came back," she exclaimed, running toward him. "I promised, didn't I?" Thomas smiled, grabbing some shopping bags from the car. "I brought more things for you. Can you help me carry them?" Estella nodded enthusiastically, picking up a small bag with determined effort. Together, they climbed the stairs to the apartment. Inside, Lily was on the mattress, holding Noah, who was crying. Upon seeing Thomas, she looked relieved. "He's hungry again," Lily explained, her voice so soft it was nearly a whisper. Thomas quickly pulled out a carton of milk from the bags and handed it to Estella, who was already rushing to prepare a bottle. The efficiency of a 5-year-old caring for her baby brother was both impressive and heartbreaking to watch. "I brought food for you," Thomas said, starting to unpack the supplies. "And some other things too." While Estella fed Noah, Thomas prepared a simple meal for Lily, canned vegetable soup that just needed heating. The little girl ate slowly, watching Thomas with curious but still cautious eyes. After they finished eating, Thomas began showing them the other items he'd brought. First, the new soft blankets. "So you don't get cold at night," he explained, laying one out over the mattress. Lily touched the blanket in wonder, feeling its softness. A small smile graced her face, the first Thomas had seen. She clutched the blanket to her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Next, Thomas took out the toys. Lily's eyes widened at the sight of a doll with golden hair, just like hers. "Is that for me?" she asked incredulously. "Yes." "Do you like it?" Lily nodded, carefully taking the doll, afraid it might break. For Noah, Thomas brought a soft teddy bear and colorful toy cars. The baby, now satisfied after eating, eyed the new objects curiously. Estella watched everything with an unreadable expression, a mix of happiness for the new things and fear about what it all meant. Thomas sensed that she, despite her young age, understood something important was changing in their lives. "Estella," Thomas said, picking up a box of colored pencils and a sketch pad. "These are for you." The girl took the pencils, opening the box carefully. She ran her fingers over the bright colors as if she'd never seen anything like them. "Mom let me use her paints sometimes," she said softly, "but only a little bit, because they were expensive." Mentioning Olivia brought a moment of silence. Thomas felt a lump in his throat. "Your mother, she was a very talented artist," he said, glancing at the sunflower paintings leaning against the wall. Estella nodded. "She painted when she wasn't too tired from work. She said sunflowers always turn to face the sun, even on cloudy days, and we should be like them. Thomas swallowed hard. That metaphor was so typical of Olivia, hopeful no matter the circumstances. Where did she work? Lots of places. She cleaned houses, waited tables in restaurants. Sometimes she sold her paintings, but people didn't pay her much. Thomas felt a twinge of guilt. While he was building his fortune, Olivia was struggling to survive, raising 3 children alone. "And have you always lived here?" "No, we lived somewhere better before, but after Mum got sick we couldn't pay rent anymore, so we came here." Thomas surveyed the apartment more closely now, noticing water damage on the ceiling, mold on the walls, broken fixtures. This was no place for children. "Estella, how did your mom get sick?" The girl frowned in concentration. "She coughed a lot, got weak. Sometimes when she thought we were sleeping, she cried in pain. One day she fainted. A neighbor called an ambulance. Mom never came back." Thomas closed his eyes momentarily. Olivia's illness likely could have been treated earlier if she'd had proper medical care, if she hadn't been forced to work herself to exhaustion, if she hadn't been alone. "Did the neighbor help you after that?" "She moved away soon after. Said she was sorry, but she couldn't take care of us." While they talked, Lily began drawing on the floor with her new pencils, creating colorful worlds she'd never seen in real life. Noah followed Estella everywhere, clinging to her shadow. Thomas realized these kids had never known a normal life. No school, no playgrounds, no friends their own age. Their world was limited to these 4 walls. "You never go out?" he asked. Estella shook her head. "Mum said it was dangerous outside for kids alone. I only go out to buy food or try selling her paintings." In the following days, Thomas established a routine. He visited the children every day, always bringing new supplies and toys. He helped with small repairs, fixing a loose socket, patching a leaky spot on the ceiling, cleaning mold off the walls. But these were temporary solutions to structural problems. Lily slowly shed her shyness. She began drawing on the floor with her colored pencils, creating vibrant scenes. Noah followed Estella everywhere, holding on to her. But he soon reached out to Thomas too when he arrived. One day, Thomas found Lily with her hair completely tangled. Without a second thought, he grabbed a brush he had brought and gently began to untangle her golden locks. "Mom used to do that," Lily said, her voice more confident now. "She made pretty braids." "I don't know how to braid," Thomas admitted, "but I can learn." Another day, he improvised a small puppet show for Noah using cardboard boxes and old socks as puppets. The baby laughed for the first time since Thomas met him, a pure, bright sound that filled the apartment. Estella watched it all with a mix of relief and apprehension. Thomas noticed that in brief moments, she allowed herself to be just a 5-year-old, drawing or reading the books he brought, but she quickly returned to her caretaker role, checking on Noah, making sure Lily had eaten. One night, while Thomas helped Estella put away the toys before leaving, she watched him intently. "Will you keep coming?" she asked. "Of course. Forever." The question caught him off guard. It revealed her fear of being abandoned again, like so many other adults in her life. Her father, who left before she was born, her mother, taken by illness, neighbors who promised to help but never returned. "Estella, I'm not going to leave you," Thomas promised, taking her small hands. "I'm here to help." But as he drove back to his luxurious apartment that night, Thomas knew that daily visits and makeshift fixes weren't enough. The children needed stability, safety, a healthy environment. The DNA test had confirmed what his heart already knew. Estella was his biological daughter. As for Lily and Noah, Marcus was searching for other relatives, but no one had appeared yet. Thomas looked around at his vast, empty apartment, 3 extra bedrooms, a kitchen he rarely used, a living room where he never hosted guests. All that wasted space while 3 children crowded into a crumbling room. Then the idea struck him. Why not bring them here? He had plenty of room, plenty of resources, and now the legal confirmation that Estella was his responsibility. He could never separate them. That was out of the question. The solution was clear. They all had to move in with him. With that resolve, Thomas began to plan. He would need to set up the rooms, buy more supplies, think of long-term care. It was a drastic change, But for the first time in years, he felt he was doing something truly important. The memory of the 3 children in that damp, cold apartment, Estella acting like a miniature mother, Lily clinging to her new blanket, Noah finally sleeping without crying from hunger, haunted him. They deserved better, and he could provide it. "I'll fix this," Thomas murmured to himself. "I promise." Thomas tossed and turned in bed. The digital clock on his nightstand read 3:17 a.m., but sleep was impossible. His once tranquil apartment felt hollow and meaningless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Estella, Lily, and Noah in that dingy, cramped space they called home. He got up and walked to the window. The city lights sparkled under the night sky, the skyline full of tall buildings. Somewhere out there, 3 children slept on a worn-out mattress on a cold floor, while he had 3 empty bedrooms. Memories of Olivia flooded his mind. What would life have been like if he had stayed, if he had chosen love over ambition? Estella would have been born into a stable home, with 2 present parents. Maybe Lily and Noah would also be his, making a complete family, instead of children left to survive alone. But he couldn't change the past. He could only try to fix the present. Thomas grabbed his phone and, despite the hour, sent Marcus a message. "Need to talk about the kids. Urgent. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. at my office." To his surprise, the reply came almost instantly. "I'll be there." He spent the rest of the night jotting down plans, calculating possibilities. When dawn broke, his decision was made. Marcus arrived promptly at 8, carrying a folder of documents and looking concerned. "You look like you didn't sleep," the lawyer observed, accepting the coffee Thomas offered. "I didn't. I was thinking about the kids." "The DNA test confirmed what we suspected," Marcus said, opening the folder. "Estella is your biological daughter. No margin of error." Thomas nodded. Deep down, he already knew, from the moment he saw her eyes. "What about Lily and Noah? So far, no relatives have surfaced who could take them. Olivia's sister is your only lead, but according to Estella, they lost touch years ago. We're trying to locate her, but no luck yet." Thomas took a deep breath. "Marcus, I can't let those kids stay in that place. The apartment is falling apart. Leaks, mold, dangerous wiring. It's a constant hazard. So what's your plan?" "I want them to move in with me, all 3 of them." Marcus adjusted his glasses, studying Thomas curiously. In 5 years of working together, he'd never seen Thomas so determined about anything outside of business. "Legally, you have the right to take Estella since you're her biological father," Marcus explained. "For Lily and Noah, it's more complicated. But given the conditions they're living in, we can request temporary custody while we look for a permanent arrangement." "And what are our chances of getting that temporary custody?" "Pretty good, if we prove they're in danger. A social worker's visit to that apartment would likely be enough." Thomas shook his head. "I don't want to bring in social services yet. They might separate the kids, put them in different foster homes. Estella would be devastated away from her siblings." "So what's your plan?" "I'll ask them directly. If they agree to come home with me, we'll show the judge the facts. I'll prove I'm Estella's father, that I have the resources to care for all 3, and that keeping them together is best for their emotional well-being." Marcus considered this. "It's risky, but it might work. Judge Wilson tends to prioritize the children's interests above legal technicalities." After the meeting with Marcus, Thomas set out on a mission. First stop, a children's furniture store. He bought 3 beds, colorful wardrobes, shelves, lamps shaped like animals, and soft rugs. For the main children's bedroom, he chose a bright, cozy decor in neutral tones, suitable for both boys and girls. "Your kids will love it," the sales assistant remarked as she processed his purchase. "I hope so," Thomas replied, feeling an odd mix of anxiety and hope at the word kids. Next, he bought more clothes and educational toys, picture books. He thought of each child individually. For Estella, art supplies and slightly more advanced books. For Lily, more dolls and simple games. For Noah, sensory toys fit for his age. The last stop was the supermarket, where he stocked up on healthy foods, children's snacks, and natural juices. He also grabbed hygiene products, basic medicines, and vitamins. When he got home, the new furniture was already being delivered. Thomas supervised the assembly, directing the delivery crew on exactly where to place each item. He wanted everything to be perfect. As he organized the new bedroom, doubts attacked him. What did he know about being a father? He'd never taken care of children before. He knew nothing about bedtime routines, emotional needs, or discipline. What would Olivia think of him now, trying to fill a role he never prepared for? Then he remembered Estella, managing everything at 5 years old, with no resources. If she could do it, surely he could learn. It wasn't perfect, but it was infinitely better than leaving them in that dilapidated apartment. When he finished, it was past 3 in the afternoon. Thomas stepped back to admire his work. The once empty bedroom was now welcoming, colorful, designed for children. Hopefully it would be Estella, Lily, and Noah's new home. He took a quick shower and headed to their building. His heart pounded at the thought of telling them. What if Estella refused? What if she preferred to stay in the only place she knew, despite its hardships? He would have to respect her choice. Pulling up near the building, he saw Estella seated on the front steps, drawing in a notebook he'd given her. When she spotted him, her eyes shone. That genuine look of joy was worth more than all the profitable deals in his career. "Thomas!" she exclaimed, running to him. "You're here earlier today." "I have something important to discuss with you," he explained, smiling. "Is everyone okay?" "Noah woke up with a cough," Estella said, a worried expression crossing her childish features, one that shouldn't belong on someone so young. "And Lily didn't want breakfast." Thomas's stomach clenched. This was exactly why he needed to act quickly. They walked up together. Inside, Thomas found Lily lying on the mattress, looking paler than usual. Noah was beside her, playing with the toy cars Thomas had brought before, occasionally coughing. "Hey there, little ones," Thomas greeted, kneeling by the mattress. "How are you feeling today?" Lily only shrugged, but Noah smiled and reached for him, calling out in his baby babble, "Papa!" which still made Thomas's heart skip. Thomas picked Noah up, feeling his forehead. He was slightly feverish. "Estella," Thomas said after checking on the children, "could we talk for a minute?" She nodded, following him to the tiny kitchenette. "This place isn't good for you," Thomas began, straightforwardly. "Mold on the walls, dampness, cold nights. Noah is getting sicker, and Lily doesn't look well either." Estella lowered her gaze, as if it were her fault. "I know it's not good, but it's all we have. Mom used to say at least we're together. What if I told you there's another option? A place where all 3 of you could stay together, but in much better conditions." She looked up, torn between suspicion and hope. "What place?" "My apartment," Thomas answered. "There's more than enough space. You'd have warm beds, healthy food, new clothes, and most importantly, you'd stay together, all 3 of you." Estella frowned, trying to absorb the information. "But why would you do that? Why are you helping us so much?" Thomas hesitated. It still wasn't the right time to reveal everything. "Because I care about you. Because no child should live like this, and because," he paused, choosing his words, "because I knew your mom, and I know she'd want you to be okay." Estella glanced over at her siblings. Lily coughed a dry cough that echoed in the small room. "They're sick," she said softly. "It's getting colder every day. You don't have to decide right now," Thomas said, though his heart longed for an immediate yes. "Take some time to think." Estella shook her head. "No? If you're really going to help us, it has to be now. Noah's getting worse every day." The resolve in the voice of a 5-year-old shattered Thomas's heart once more. Again, she was taking on a responsibility meant for an adult. "Then can I take you today?" Estella nodded. "But we need to bring some things. Mom's things." "Of course. You can bring whatever you want." Thomas helped Estella pack the few important belongings. Clothes, the toys he'd brought, some worn-out books that had belonged to Olivia, and most importantly, the sunflower paintings, especially the largest one Olivia painted before she got sick. "This one was her favorite," Estella explained, running her hand over the simple frame. "She said she painted it while thinking of me." As they carefully wrapped the paintings, Thomas realized that these simple items carried so much meaning. They weren't just paintings, but memories, connections to Olivia, reminders of a time when these children had a mother's love. He helped Lily put on a warmer coat, while Estella packed a bag with Noah's diapers and whatever medicine they had. Just some aspirin and nearly empty cough syrup. "Ready?" Thomas asked, looking around to make sure they hadn't forgotten anything important. Estella nodded, but her eyes scanned the apartment one last time. As run down as it had been their home, the only place she could still feel Olivia's presence. "We can come back if we need something," Thomas assured her, guessing her thoughts. "We're not moving to the other side of the world." The girl nodded, taking Lily's hand while Thomas carried Noah. Together, they left the apartment. Thomas locked the door, though he suspected they wouldn't return. In the car, he carefully fastened the children in place. Noah in the car seat he'd just bought, Lily and Estella in the back seat with proper belts. The sunflower painting lay wrapped in blankets in the trunk. As he drove toward his apartment, Thomas watched the children in the rearview mirror. Lily looked out the window, fascinated by the city lights beginning to glow at dusk. Noah had dozed off, his breathing still a little raspy from congestion. Estella kept watch, as always, occasionally stroking Lily's hair or checking that Noah was comfortable. Something inside him shifted with every mile. It wasn't just his life changing, it was his purpose, his very essence. For years, he'd lived only for himself, his career, his bank account. Suddenly, 3 small people were depending on him, trusting him. When they arrived at the luxurious building where Thomas lived, the doorman looked stunned to see him with children. In 5 years, Thomas Blake had never been seen with kids. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blake," the doorman greeted, opening the car door. "May I help you with your luggage?" "Thanks, Robert. We have some items in the trunk, mostly paintings that need careful handling." While the doorman retrieved the belongings, Thomas helped the kids out of the car. Noah was awake again and glanced around curiously. Lily clung to Estella's hand, clearly intimidated by the building's grandeur. "Is this where you live?" Estella asked, looking up as though trying to see the top of the building. "Yes, on the 10th floor. You'll like the view." In the elevator, Lily clung more tightly to Estella, not used to the sensation. Thomas held Noah, noticing how the toddler watched the lighted floor indicators with fascination. Opening the apartment door, Thomas felt a wave of nerves and anticipation. It was the first time he'd brought anyone here to stay, and not just anyone, but 3 children who needed stability, security, love. "Welcome to your new home," he said, guiding them inside. The apartment was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic city view. The decor was minimalist, in neutral tones, adorned with designer furniture and contemporary art on the walls. It wasn't a typical child-friendly environment, except for the room Thomas had just set up. Estella stepped in, hugging the sunflower painting, her eyes sweeping across every detail. Lily followed closely, gripping her sister's hand, eyes wide at the immensity of the place. Noah, in Thomas's arms, pointed at the city lights through the windows. "I'll show you where you'll sleep," Thomas said, leading them down the hallway. Opening the bedroom door he'd prepared, he was rewarded by pure astonishment on their faces. Estella gasped softly, Lily ran to feel the soft bedspread, and Noah babbled excitedly at the colorful lamps. "This room is for us?" Estella asked, incredulous. "All yours," Thomas confirmed. "I hope you like it." Lily had already climbed onto the bed, pressing her hands against the plush comforter. "It's so soft," she murmured, her voice more animated than Thomas had ever heard it. Estella set the sunflower painting against a wall. "Can we hang it here?" "Of course. First thing tomorrow, we'll figure it out. It can go wherever you like." Thomas let the children explore the room for a while. He observed how they gradually shed their timidity. Lily opened drawers, finding new clothes inside. Noah crawled to a basket of toys, utterly fascinated. Estella inspected every detail as if memorizing it, still not fully believing it wasn't a dream. "How about we see the rest of the place?" Thomas suggested after a few minutes. "Then we can make dinner. You must be hungry." He showed them the kitchen, explaining where the utensils were, pointing out the fridge stocked with food, the cupboards with snacks. Then the living room with a huge TV, which the children stared at in fascination, likely never having watched one before, the office where he worked when home, and finally, the main bathroom. "Here's where you can take a bath," he said, showing them the spacious tub. "There's always hot water." "Hot water," Lily repeated, as if it was an odd concept. "Yes, nice and warm. You'll like it." Back in the kitchen, Thomas started preparing a simple but nutritious meal: pasta with homemade tomato sauce, a colorful salad, and yogurt with fruit for dessert. Estella, back in her helper role, asked if she could assist. Thomas assigned her to mix the salad, while Lily sat at the table, still looking somewhat out of place. Noah was in the high chair Thomas had bought, banging happily with a spoon. "Did you used to have dinner together with your mom?" Thomas asked, trying to keep the conversation light. Estella nodded. "When she didn't work nights, she always said dinner time was special." "That's a good habit," Thomas agreed. "We can keep it here, eating dinner together every day." As they ate, Thomas noticed how the children behaved at the table. Estella had surprisingly good manners for her age. Lily ate slowly, savoring every bite like it was precious. Noah was messier but seemed to enjoy the food, smiling after every spoonful. After dinner, Thomas suggested a warm bath before bedtime. He filled the tub with cozy water and a bit of bubble bath, hoping it would be fun. Lily was first, stepping in cautiously, as if she couldn't believe it. When the bubbles reached her chin, she giggled, a pure sound Thomas had never heard from her before. Noah came next, splashing water everywhere with his little legs. Thomas had to change his shirt afterward, but he didn't mind. Seeing the baby so happy was worth every drop. Estella was last, insisting she could bathe on her own. Thomas respected her independence, but stayed close by, just outside the slightly ajar door, in case she needed anything. After their baths, dressed in new pajamas, the three children looked different, more relaxed, more childlike. Especially Estella, who for a moment seemed to let go of the massive responsibility on her small shoulders. Thomas led them to their bedroom, tucking them in and asking if they wanted a bedtime story. To his surprise, all three nodded enthusiastically. He picked one of the children's books he'd bought, a story about a family of bears, and started reading, changing his voice for each character. Lily laughed at the funny voices. Noah stared intently at the illustrations, and Estella watched Thomas with an expression he couldn't quite read. By the time the story ended, Noah was fast asleep. Lily fought to keep her eyes open. Thomas turned off the main light, leaving only a small lamp on, and bid them good night. He was leaving the room when Estella's voice stopped him. "Thomas?" "Yes." "Are you really going to stay with us? You won't leave?" The simple yet weighty question hit Thomas hard. To this girl, adults were people who disappeared. Her father gone before she was born, her mother taken by illness, neighbors who promised help but vanished. "I'm not leaving, Estella," he promised, returning to sit on the edge of her bed. "This is my apartment, remember? And now it's yours too. We're all home." She still looked uncertain. "What if you decide you don't want us anymore, like my dad decided?" Thomas felt a knot in his throat. If only she knew. If she knew he was that very father who'd abandoned her, now desperately trying to make amends. "Estella, look at me," he said, gently holding her hands. "I promise I won't abandon you. We're together now. A family." The word family hung in the air. It was the first time Thomas had used it, and he realized it was exactly what he wanted. A family with these three children who had so unexpectedly entered his life. Estella didn't answer, but her eyes, so much like Olivia's, gleamed with a mixture of hope and fear. Thomas knew her trust would be won over time, through actions rather than words. "Sleep well," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "Tomorrow will be a new day, a better one." When all three kids were finally asleep, Thomas went to the living room, exhausted but strangely fulfilled. He gazed out the window at the glowing city, thinking about how drastically his life had changed in just a few days. He had no experience as a parent. He wasn't sure he was doing everything right. Surely he would make mistakes. But looking at those three sleeping children in a bedroom that had been empty just days before, he knew he was on the right track. For the first time in years, Thomas Blake felt that his life had a purpose greater than himself. And that, he realized, was what he'd been searching for all along without ever knowing it. Thomas was in his office when he got the call from Marcus. His heart raced, seeing the lawyer's name on the screen. "We have the results," Marcus said bluntly. "The DNA test confirms it. Estella is your biological daughter, a 99.99% match." Thomas shut his eyes. Even though he knew in his heart, hearing the official confirmation was different, waves of emotion swept through him: joy, guilt, regret, hope, all at once. "Thomas, you all right?" "Yes," he finally managed. "Thank you, Marcus. It means a lot. I'll prepare the paperwork for her legal custody. Since you're her biological father, it'll be straightforward. As for Lily and Noah, I'm still checking for any relatives. Do it. And Marcus, thank you." He hung up and sat still for a few minutes, processing what he'd just heard. Estella was his daughter who had grown for 5 years without his support or love, not even knowing who he was. He glanced at a photo of the 3 children on his desk, one he'd taken a few days earlier while they played in the living room. Estella drawing, Lily arranging her dolls, Noah stacking colorful blocks. Normal, happy kids in simple moments he would have once deemed ordinary. Thomas decided to leave work early. He needed to tell Estella the truth. She had the right to know. When he got home, everything was peaceful. Claire, the nanny he'd hired to help while he was at work, was in the kitchen making a snack. The children were playing in the living room, just like in that photo on his desk. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blake," Claire greeted. "You're back early." "Yes, something important came up." He glanced at the children. "How are they?" "They're great. Estella is getting more comfortable every day. Lily spent the morning making drawings for you, and Noah took a few steps on his own today." Thomas smiled, proud of their little achievements. "You can head out now, Claire. I'll look after them." When the nanny left, Thomas walked over to the kids. Lily ran over, showing him a colorful picture. "Look, I drew a flower just like Mom's sunflowers." "It's beautiful, Lily. It's really similar." Noticing his presence, Noah crawled quickly toward him, babbling "Papa, Papa," in a newly learned word that still filled Thomas's heart with joy. Estella observed quietly, smiling slightly, her eyes so much like his, bright with contentment. "Estella," Thomas called, picking up Noah. "Can we talk for a bit? Just the 2 of us?" The girl nodded, immediately on alert. Even after living with him for weeks, Thomas noticed how she still tensed up whenever something seemed serious, ready to take on more than a 5-year-old should. "Lily, why don't you finish your drawings while I talk to your sister? I'll want to see them all soon." The younger girl happily agreed, returning to her colored creations. Thomas placed Noah near his favorite blocks and led Estella to the balcony, a quiet spot where they often watched the city together at sunset. "Did something happen?" Estella asked, her small voice laced with worry. "Nothing bad," Thomas hurried to assure her. "Actually, it's something important, about me, about us." They sat on the comfortable balcony chairs. Thomas tried to arrange his thoughts, searching for the right words. "Estella, do you remember when we first met, when you were selling your mum's sunflower painting?" She nodded. "You paid a lot of money for it." "Yes? And do you know why I was so interested in that painting right away? Because you knew my mum." "Exactly. But I didn't tell you everything that day." Thomas took a deep breath. "I didn't just know Olivia, we loved each other a long time ago." Estella's eyes widened. "You were Mom's boyfriend?" "Yes, before you were born." "Then why did I never see you? Why did Mom never talk about you?" Thomas felt his guilt tightening in his chest. "Because I left Estella. I left your mom when she needed me the most, when she was pregnant." Understanding dawned on the girl's face. "Pregnant with me?" Thomas nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Estella, I'm your father. Your real father." The silence that followed felt endless. Estella looked at the floor, then at her hands, and finally at Thomas, her gaze locked on his, as if trying to see the truth in his eyes. "Mom said," she began hesitantly, "that my dad had to leave because he had important things to do. She said he was good, just not ready to be a dad. Olivia's words, so generous despite everything, cut Thomas to the core. She could have told Estella the harsh reality, that he abandoned her for ambition, choosing success over family. But she hadn't. Even alone, even struggling, Olivia had preserved the father's image for her child. "Your mum was amazing," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "And she was right, I wasn't ready. I was selfish and cowardly. But now, Estella, I want to be here. I want to be your father if you'll let me." Estella stayed quiet, processing. Her eyes showed a swirl of emotions no 5-year-old should have to face alone. "So, you're really my dad?" she asked at last. "Yes, and I'm so sorry I wasn't here these 5 years. I'm sorry you and your mum had to go through everything alone." To his surprise, Estella reached out and touched his hand gently. "Mum said we shouldn't stay stuck in the past, that we should look ahead, like the sunflowers turn to the sun." Thomas smiled through tears. Even in her absence, Olivia was guiding her daughter, and, in a way, guiding him too. "What about Lily and Noah?" Estella asked, her greatest concern always for her siblings. "Are you their dad too?" "Not by blood, but that doesn't matter to me. You three are a set, a family. That's how it's going to be." Her face changed instantly. Relief, hope, replacing the constant fear of separation. Back in the living room, they found Lily still drawing and Noah stacking blocks. Thomas got down on the floor with them, Estella beside him. "Lily, Noah," he said softly, "I have news. I'm Estella's dad. That means the three of you will stay here with me all together." Lily stared at him with her big blue eyes. "You're Estella's dad?" "Yes, I am." The little girl thought it over in her simple way. "What about me and Noah?" Thomas smiled, moved by her innocence. "If you want, I can be your dad too." From the heart. Lily didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around Thomas, hugging him as tight as she could. "I want that. I want you to be my dad." Noah, picking up on Lily's excitement, crawled over and raised his arms, wanting to be held. "Papa," he repeated with more certainty this time. Thomas embraced them, overwhelmed by a happiness he'd never known. He looked at Estella, who watched with a genuine smile, perhaps the first carefree one since they met. "Come on," he said, opening one arm. "Family hug." Estella joined the embrace, finding her place in this new arrangement that, despite all the strange circumstances, was starting to feel like a real home. Later that day, after putting the kids to bed, Thomas received another call from Marcus. "I have good news and bad news," the lawyer began. "The good news, the paperwork to formalize your custody of Estella is nearly done. And if no relatives claim Lily and Noah in the next few months, you can begin the adoption process." "And the bad news? We found a lead on Olivia's sister. She lives in another city, but we haven't been able to contact her yet. If she surfaces, she'd have priority for Lily and Noah," Thomas finished, feeling a knot in his stomach. "Exactly. But don't worry yet. She might not even know the kids exist, or she may not be interested in taking responsibility." Thomas thanked him for the update and hung up, a new fear taking root in his chest. He walked quietly to the children's room, opening the door a crack so as not to wake them. There they were, Estella, Lily, and Noah, sleeping peacefully, believing they were safe, that they finally had a stable home. The thought that someone might appear to tear this new family apart was unbearable. Gently closing the door, Thomas returned to the living room, determined to do everything in his power to keep the three of them together, under his protection. Little did he know that hundreds of miles away, a woman had just received a letter informing her of Olivia Carter's death and the existence of 3 children now in the care of a stranger. The sun filtered lazily through the window of a small apartment in Riverside, a city a few states away. Diana Carter picked up the accumulated mail from her P.O. box. She had just returned from 3 months of work travel, one of the reasons she kept little contact with people, including her only sister, Olivia. Among the bills, advertising flyers and a magazine subscription she'd forgotten to cancel, Diana found an official letter bearing a government seal. She frowned, opening it as she settled on the couch. Her eyes scanned the first lines, and her hands began to tremble. "Dear Ms. Diana Carter, We regret to inform you of the passing of Olivia Carter, which occurred approximately 4 months ago. Diana dropped the letter, feeling as though she'd been physically struck. Olivia was dead 4 months ago, and she was only finding out now. With shaking fingers, she forced herself to continue reading. The letter mentioned 3 minors who initially had been alone in the apartment they lived in, but were now under the temporary care of a man named Thomas Blake, who claimed to be the biological father of one of the children. 3 children, Diana whispered into her empty apartment. Olivia had 3 kids. The last time the sisters had spoken was nearly 6 years ago, an ugly argument about life choices, about Diana always prioritizing work, about Olivia throwing away her artistic talent. They'd exchanged harsh words, then clung to years of silence. Diana knew Olivia had one daughter, Estella. She'd received a birth announcement 5 years ago. She never replied, hurt and busy, thinking eventually things would work out, as they always had. But time passed, silence grew, and now it was too late. The letter stated that as Olivia's closest relative, Diana had the right to request information about the children's welfare, especially Lily and Noah, whose connection to Mr. Blake was unconfirmed. Guilt flooded Diana. Not only had she lost the final years of her sister's life, she didn't even know her own niece and nephews. She hadn't known Olivia was sick. She hadn't been there to help or say goodbye. She picked up the phone and dialed the number of the law office mentioned in the letter. Lowenstein and Associates, good morning, answered a formal voice. Good morning. I'd like to speak with Marcus Lowenstein, please. It's about the Carter children. I'm Diana Carter, Olivia's sister. A brief pause. Then, one moment, I'll transfer you. As she waited, Diana's gaze fell on an old photo on the shelf. She and Olivia as teenagers, smiling, arms around each other. How had they drifted so far apart? Ms. Carter, this is Marcus Lowenstein. We've been trying to locate you for some time. I just got back from a work trip. I found your letter about my sister and the nieces and nephew I didn't even know existed. I understand. It's a delicate situation. What would you like to know? Everything. How Olivia died, who these children are, how they ended up with this Thomas Blake. Marcus explained. Olivia's illness, likely worsened by lack of proper treatment due to financial difficulties. The children left alone in a precarious apartment. The chance meeting between Thomas and Estella. The paternity test, the current custody situation. And who is this Thomas? Why is he caring for Lily and Noah if only Estella is his? Diana asked, a note of distrust in her voice. Mr. Blake is a respected businessman with the resources to provide a suitable home. As for his motivation, he claims the 3 children share a strong bond, and it would be traumatic to separate them. Diana was silent for a moment, processing it. I want to meet them. I'm their aunt, after all. I have that right. Certainly, I can arrange a meeting. I don't just want a meeting. I need to see if he's suitable to raise my niece and nephew. And if not, well, Lily and Noah are my blood relatives. Maybe they should be with me. Another pause on Marcus's end. Ms. Carter, the children are well settled with Mr. Blake. Any change would require careful consideration of what's best for them. And wouldn't it be best for them to be with a real relative, someone who shares their blood and family history? That would be up to the court, considering multiple factors. After a few minutes discussing legalities, Diana stated she would travel to the city in 2 days and wanted to meet Thomas Blake and the children as soon as possible. The Thomas was in the children's room, helping Lily organize her drawings. When the phone rang, the past few weeks had brought a comfortable routine. Estella was gradually becoming more of a carefree child. Lily talked more each day, and Noah had started taking his first steps around the apartment. Hearing Marcus's tense tone on the line, Thomas felt a jolt of anxiety. She called, the lawyer said, Diana Carter, Olivia's sister. Thomas looked at the children playing, unaware of the threat that had just surfaced. What does she want? To meet her niece and nephews. And she hinted she might seek custody of Lily and Noah. The floor felt like it dropped from beneath Thomas's feet. She can't do that. They're happy here, safe. We're a family now. Legally, she has a strong claim as their blood relative, but don't get ahead of yourself. She's coming in 2 days for a meeting. That soon? She sounds determined. I suggest we agree and use the meeting to show her how well the kids are doing with you. After he hung up, Thomas stood still for a moment. How would he tell the children, especially Estella, who was finally feeling secure? Thomas, you look sad. Estella's voice pulled him back. The girl observed him with those penetrating eyes that always seemed to sense when something was wrong. Estella, can we talk? He asked. There's something you need to know. They sat in the cozy reading corner he'd set up for her, with comfy cushions and a small bookshelf. Remember your mom mentioned a sister, Aunt Diana, who lived far away? Estella nodded slowly. Mom said they argued that Aunt Diana was always too busy to visit. Well, that Aunt Diana just found out about your mom, about you three. She wants to meet you. Estella's eyes widened in apprehension. Why? After so long? Sometimes adults make mistakes, Estella. They stay away from people they should be close to. I did that to you and your mom. He paused, choosing words carefully. Your aunt feels guilty she wasn't there, especially when your mom got sick. Is she going to take us away? The direct question, laced with fear, broke Thomas's heart. Not if I can help it, Thomas said, hugging Estella. You're my family now. I'll do everything to keep you three together, right here with me. Promise? I promise. Later, once the kids were asleep, Thomas called Marcus again to discuss his worries. He wasn't about to give up any of the kids, especially since separating them would be devastating. The day of Diana's visit came sooner than Thomas wished. He had prepared the children as best he could, especially Lily and Noah, who had never heard of Diana. Estella remained anxious, quieter than usual. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. Thomas took a deep breath and opened it. Diana Carter had the same eyes as Olivia, though her other features were sharper, more severe. She dressed with subdued elegance, her assessing gaze sweeping over Thomas. Mr. Blake, I presume, she said, her tone controlled, professional. Yes, please come in. Diana entered, studying every detail. Thomas saw her eyes linger on the children's toys in the living room, on the drawings taped to the fridge, on the recent photos of the kids framed on the wall. Where are they? She asked, her voice betraying a slight tremor. In the playroom. Let me introduce you. Thomas guided Diana to where the three kids were. Estella was reading on the floor, Lily drawing at her little table, Noah stacking blocks. They stopped their activities when they saw the unfamiliar woman. Kids, Thomas said gently, this is Diana Carter. She's your mom's sister, the aunt I told you about. Diana froze momentarily. Her gaze roamed their small faces, spotting bits of Olivia in each child. Lily's smile, Noah's forehead, Estella's eyes. Hello, she managed at last, her voice softer now. You look exactly how I imagined. Estella stood first, positioning herself protectively in front of her siblings. Hi, she said formally. Lily half hid behind Estella, eyeing the stranger curiously. Noah, oblivious to the tension, kept playing with his blocks. You all resemble her so much, Diana said, emotion finally surfacing. Olivia, Thomas indicated the couch. Why don't we sit? The kids can keep playing while we talk. Sitting a polite distance apart, Thomas and Diana watched the children for a few minutes in silence. Except for Estella, who glanced over warily, Lily and Noah soon resumed their activities. They seem happy here, Diana noted. They are. It took time for them to adjust, but this is home now. Diana turned to Thomas, her eyes sharper. How did all this happen? Olivia never mentioned you in the few times we spoke after Estella was born. Thomas recounted everything, his past with Olivia, leaving her before knowing she was pregnant, stumbling upon Estella and the painting, discovering their living conditions, and deciding to bring the kids home. So you only discovered Estella by chance. And you chose to take the other two as well. Why exactly? Guilt. At first, maybe, Thomas admitted, but it quickly became much more. These kids are a unit. They've never been separated. Estella practically raised Lily and Noah when Olivia got too sick. They never went to school, Diana asked, appalled. No, Olivia kept them home, likely out of necessity. She was alone, ill, and had no resources. Estella was the only one who went out sometimes, to buy food or try selling her mother's paintings. Diana shut her eyes briefly, guilt evident on her face. I didn't know. If I had known... The important thing is what we do now, Thomas said. They're safe, cared for, starting to heal emotionally. Diana looked him in the eye. Mr. Blake, I'll be honest. I came here ready to question your ability to raise these kids. I plan to argue that Lily and Noah should be with their blood relative. Thomas's heart pounded, but he kept calm. And now, I'm not sure, Diana admitted. I see you've invested in them, made a loving home. But I still feel I have an obligation to my nephews. May I suggest something? Thomas paused. Talk to them, get to know them a bit. Diana agreed, moving closer to the kids. She sat on the floor, trying to start a conversation. Lily watched her cautiously. Noah, sensing a stranger's presence, crawled over to Estella for security. Do you remember me? Diana asked gently. I'm your mum's sister. Lily shook her head. Never saw you before. Mum sometimes talked about you, Estella said. She said you lived really far away. I do travel a lot for work. I should have visited you, but... Diana swallowed. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. Why'd you come now? Estella asked bluntly. The question caught Diana off guard. Because I just found out about everything, your mum, you three. I wanted to make sure you're all right, and if you need anything. We're fine, Estella replied simply. Thomas takes care of us. Diana glanced at Thomas, then back at the children. Do you like living here with him? Lily nodded excitedly. We have soft beds and toys. And Thomas makes pancakes in the morning. Hearing his name, Noah looked around, spotted Thomas, and extended his arms, calling Papa. Thomas approached, picking Noah up. The toddler snuggled against his chest, completely at ease. Diana watched with a conflicted expression. They really are attached to you. They're my family now, Thomas said simply. After a few more attempts to talk with the children, Diana asked Thomas for a private word. They stepped into the kitchen, leaving Estella to watch over Lily and Noah. Mr. Blake, I came here convinced I was fixing something wrong, Diana began. I believed Lily and Noah should be with their real family, their blood relative. I understand your concern, but I see how they look at you, how they trust you, how safe they feel. At the same time, I'm their aunt, the only family they have left. I can't just go back to my life as if they don't exist. No one's asking you to, Thomas said gently. You can be part of their lives, visit them, form a bond. Diana looked back toward the living room, where the kids were playing. I need to think. I don't want to create more trauma for them, but I can't ignore my responsibility. Take your time. The kids aren't going anywhere. When Diana left the apartment, she was visibly shaken. She made no direct threats, but Thomas could see she wasn't sure what to do. She said she'd be in touch soon, after processing what she'd seen and heard. Thomas closed the door and leaned his forehead against it for a moment, emotionally drained. When he turned to us, he found Estella standing in the hallway, watching him. Is she taking us away? I don't know, Estella, he answered honestly, but I'll fight for you no matter what. I'll make sure you stay together and safe. She nodded slowly, accepting the uncertainty but trusting his promise. Thomas hugged her, feeling the weight of what he'd taken on. What had begun as a quest for redemption was now so much more: love, family, his whole life. As they returned to the living room, where Lily and Noah played, unaware of the storm brewing, Thomas knew there might be a tough battle ahead. Diana Carter was clearly torn between her sense of duty and what was best for the kids. All he could do now was strengthen the bonds between them and prepare to protect his newly formed family, should the need arise. Diana Carter sat on the hotel bed, phone in hand, the business card of a law firm in front of her. She couldn't stop thinking about the 3 children in Thomas Blake's home. On the one hand, it was obvious they were well taken care of. On the other, Lily and Noah were her blood relatives, the last link to Olivia. The more she thought about it, the more she felt morally obligated to step up. I should have been there, she muttered. When you got sick, Olivia, I should have been a better sister. Lily's words echoed in her mind. Never saw you before. and the image of Noah so comfortable in Thomas's arms, calling him Papa. Still, Diana picked up the phone and dialed the number on the card. Reynolds Law Office, how can I help you? Yes, my name is Diana Carter. I need assistance with a child custody case. The next morning, Thomas met with Marcus at his office. The news was grim. Diana Carter hired Patricia Reynolds, Marcus said, looking serious. She's one of the best family attorneys in the region. Thomas felt a deep unease. So she's decided to fight for custody. It seems so. At least for Lily and Noah, since she doesn't dispute your paternity over Estella. Thomas stood abruptly, pacing the room. Marcus, you haven't seen how the kids reacted to her. They didn't even recognize her. Lily and Noah have never met her in their lives. I understand, but legally, Diana's claim as a blood relative is strong. You, on the other hand, have no biological connection to Lily and Noah. What about the emotional bond? They call me Dad. They feel safe with me. That matters too, Thomas. The children's emotional well-being is a key factor the judge will consider. That's why we need a strong case. Thomas took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. What do we need to do? Document everything, the kids' progress under your care, medical reports, testimonies. It would also help to have a child psychologist evaluate the bonds they've formed. Will the kids need to testify? Possibly. The judge may want to hear from Estella, maybe Lily, but in an informal setting. Thomas raked his hand through his hair. I don't want them to go through that. They've already suffered so much. And back home, Thomas found Claire reading a story to the children. Lily was curled up in her lap. Noah played with blocks, and Estella listened but appeared distant. Thomas, Lily exclaimed, noticing him first. She jumped from Claire's lap and ran for a hug. Hey, princess. He lifted her into his arms. How was your day? I drew flowers. Claire said they're really good. Noah, hearing Thomas's voice, crawled swiftly over, raising his arms and calling, Papa, Papa. Only Estella stayed put, watching Thomas with those knowing eyes. After Claire left and the children had dinner, Thomas decided honesty was best, at least with Estella. While Lily and Noah played in the living room, he beckoned Estella to the balcony. Something happened, didn't it? Estella asked directly. Thomas nodded. Remember your Aunt Diana who visited? She thinks maybe Lily and Noah should be with her. The girl's eyes went wide. Take them away. She believes that because she's your mom's sister, it might be better for them to live with her. But we're a family. Estella's voice rose with emotion. We've always stayed together. Mom said we should never be separated. I know, and I agree. That's why I'm fighting to keep all three of you here. She can't just show up and take them, can she? Thomas hesitated. There's a legal process. A judge will decide what's best for Lily and Noah. What if the judge decides wrong? Her blunt question cut deeply. We'll do everything we can to show the judge the best place for them is here, with you and me. That night, as Thomas tucked the kids in, he saw a change in them. Lily asked to keep the light on. Noah clung to him whenever he tried to leave the room, and Estella stayed awake, watchful like in the early days. Late that night, checking on the kids, Thomas found Lily still awake, eyes wide in the dim light. Can't sleep? He asked gently, sitting on the edge of her bed. Lily shook her head. Thomas, is that strange lady going to take me away? His heart cracked. You're worried about Aunt Diana coming back? She nodded, blue eyes glistening with tears. I don't want to go. I want to stay with you, Estella and Noah. Thomas hugged her tight. I'm doing everything I can to keep everyone together. I promise. Pinky promise. Lily extended her little finger, a ritual they'd started. Pinky promise. He linked his finger with hers, sealing the vow he prayed he could keep. In the following days, tension filled the apartment. Noah cried more often, refusing to be apart from Thomas or Estella. Lily asked repeatedly if the strange lady would come back. Estella silently absorbed it all, her anxiety growing. One afternoon, while Thomas worked at home, Estella appeared in his office carrying a box. What's this? I found it among Mom's things. The ones we brought from the other apartment. Thomas eyed the cardboard box. It contained the few personal items they had managed to salvage, some of Olivia's clothes, a few books, and the sunflower paintings. "Want to see what's inside?" Estella nodded, setting the box on the table. Together, they opened it. Inside were documents, old photos, and a worn leather-bound notebook. "Mom wrote in it every night," Estella explained. "She said it was her diary." Thomas hesitated. "Maybe we should keep it closed. It was private. She told me if something happened to her, I should give it to someone she trusted." Estella nudged the diary toward Thomas. "She would trust you." Carefully, Thomas opened the diary. Olivia's handwriting was delicate, artistic. The early entries were from nearly 6 years ago, shortly after he'd left her. She wrote about the pregnancy, her fear of raising a child alone, her determination to keep going. As he flipped through, Thomas found mentions of Olivia's sister. "Diana called today, after almost a year. She's off to another country for work. Didn't ask about my pregnancy or how I'm surviving alone. I guess our last fight pushed her away for good." Further in, after Estella was born, I sent a picture of Estella to Diana. No response. "I guess it's just me and my baby against the world." The entries continued, documenting the arrival of Lily and Noah, the financial hardships, her deteriorating health. One of the final entries, dated just a few months before her death, stopped Thomas in his tracks. "If anything happens to me, I hope Estella, Lily, and Noah stay together. They're inseparable. Lily cries when Estella leaves to buy bread. Noah only sleeps if the two of them are close. Diana might show up, trying to fix things when it's too late, but she never met the kids, never cared. She wouldn't understand how much they need each other. If I had a choice, I'd want them with someone who loves them for who they are, all three of them, keeping them together." Thomas shut the diary, eyes misty. Even as she faced death, Olivia's priority had been her children's well-being. "Can I call Marcus?" he asked Estella. "I think your mom left us something very important." The next morning, Marcus came over to see the diary. After reading the relevant passages, he looked at Thomas with renewed confidence. "This is significant, Olivia explicitly stating her wish to keep the children together, her concerns about Diana not understanding them. This is a powerful argument. You think it'll impact the case?" "Absolutely. I'll inform Diana's lawyer right away." Diana got the news about the diary while sipping coffee in her hotel room. Her lawyer, Patricia Reynolds, called with an update. "A diary? Are we sure it's authentic?" "It appears so. The handwriting matches other samples from Olivia, but the content is the real problem." When Patricia read some passages, Diana felt as though she'd been slapped. Olivia's words stung because they were true. Diana had never cared enough, had never been there, and now she was trying to fix things too late, exactly as Olivia had predicted. "What does this mean for our case?" "It complicates it. The mother's expressed wish has weight, and there's the children's emotional well-being. If a child psychologist confirms that separating them would be traumatic..." Diana remained silent, guilt gnawing at her. Was she really doing this for Lily and Noah's sake, or to ease her own conscience? "I need to think," she finally said. "When is the hearing?" "Next Monday, Judge Harriman will be presiding." After hanging up, Diana stood by the window, torn. Part of her felt obliged to care for her sister's children. They were her blood, her last link to Olivia. Another part recognized that the kids had found a loving home, and forcibly moving them might do more harm than good. But backing down felt like admitting Olivia had been right about her, that she was selfish, distant, incapable of genuine empathy. And after years of estrangement, Diana wanted to prove her sister wrong, that she could be the Aunt Lily and Noah deserved. Diana picked up the phone again. "We'll proceed with the hearing," she said, her voice firm despite the turmoil in her heart. "I want to look that judge in the eye when I explain why I believe I should raise my niece and nephew." Meanwhile, Thomas prepared the children for what was coming. He explained, in the simplest terms, that they would go to a special place where an important person would ask questions. "Is it like school?" Lily asked. "Kind of. It's called a courthouse. People go there to solve serious problems. Will the strange lady be there?" Lily's voice shook. "Yes, Aunt Diana will be there." "I don't want to go," Lily declared, crossing her arms. "I know, Princess. But we need to show the judge how happy we are together." The night before the hearing, Thomas looked out at the city lights, feeling a mix of resolve to keep his family together and some sympathy for Diana. She was also trying to do what she thought was right, even if it was late. Thomas didn't want a bitter fight. He just wanted what was best for the children, to stay together with him. Their new family might not be traditional, but it was real, and he would do anything to defend it. Thomas adjusted his tie nervously while waiting in the courthouse hallway. Marcus reviewed the documents by his side. Claire, the nanny, entertained the kids on a nearby bench. Estella sat upright and alert. Lily held her stuffed bunny, and Noah played with soft blocks, oblivious to the tension. "Remember what we discussed, Estella?" Thomas crouched to her level. "The judge might ask a few questions. Just answer honestly." "I know, tell the truth," she said solemnly. "Exactly. The truth is all we need." Diana Carter arrived just then with her lawyer. She wore a subdued suit and looked exhausted. Her eyes met Thomas's for a moment, showing determination but also doubt. "All parties present," announced the bailiff. "Judge Harriman is ready." The hearing room was functional, with a raised bench for the judge, chairs for the participants, and a small play area set up for the children. Judge Harriman, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, began without excessive ceremony. "This is a guardianship case. Thomas Blake requests custody of Estella Blake, confirmed as his biological daughter, and also guardianship of Lily and Noah Carter. Diana Carter, the children's maternal aunt, disputes guardianship of Lily and Noah on grounds of familial ties." The judge adjusted his glasses, noticing the children with Claire. "As always in custody matters, my primary concern is the children's best interest. I'd like to hear from Mr. Blake first." Thomas stood and recounted how he'd met Estella, discovered their living conditions, and the steps he'd taken to care for them. "Your Honor, these children have never lived apart. At only 5 years old, Estella was taking care of her younger siblings when their mother fell ill. Their bond is unbreakable. And you, Mr. Blake, were you prepared for instant fatherhood of 3 children?" Thomas gave a small smile. "Honestly, no. But I learned day by day. I rearranged my priorities, altered my work schedule, basically reshaped my entire life. Each change was worth it when I saw the children flourish." He then introduced Olivia's diary. These are her words, clearly expressing that she wanted them together, with someone who truly loved and understood them. The judge read a few marked passages, then turned to Diana. "Miss Carter, your statement, please." Diana rose, visibly tense. "Your Honor, I'm not here to deny the good care Mr. Blake has provided. It's evident he cares for the children." She paused. "I'm here because Lily and Noah are my blood relatives. When I learned about Olivia's death, I felt it was my duty to take them in." "Did you maintain regular contact with your sister and nephews?" asked the judge. Diana lowered her eyes. "No, Your Honor. Olivia and I grew apart years ago. I didn't know about her struggles or her illness." Her voice shook. "I never met Lily and Noah until recently. Why do you believe it would be better for them to live with you instead of staying with Mr. Blake and their sister?" Diana hesitated. "Initially, I thought the blood bond should prevail, that as their only living relative I was obliged to take them. And now? Now, I'm less certain," Diana admitted. "I see how they've adapted to life with Mr. Blake, how Estella looks after them, how they call him Dad." The judge nodded, apparently appreciating her honesty. He approached the children's play area to speak with them directly. "Hello there. My name's Robert. What are your names?" Estella answered first. "I'm Estella. That's my sister Lily, and this is my brother Noah. He's only 2, so he doesn't talk much. Do you like living where you live now with Thomas?" Estella glanced at Thomas briefly. "Yes, it's big and warm. We have beds and food whenever we want." "And before, where did you live?" "A small, cold place. After Mum got sick, she couldn't pay for the nice place." "What about you, Lily? Do you like living with Thomas?" Lily nodded shyly. "He reads us stories at bedtime and makes pancakes in the morning. And that lady over there," the judge indicated Diana discreetly. "Did you know her before now?" Lily shook her head. "Never saw her. She said she's Mom's sister, but Mom never told me about her." Mom mentioned her to me, Estella added. Said Aunt Diana lived far away and was always busy. And how would you feel if you had to live with her? Lily immediately clung to Estella's arm. I don't want to go. I want to stay with Thomas, Estella, and Noah. Estella looked the judge in the eye. I promised Mom I'd take care of Lily and Noah, keep us together. Thomas helps us stay together. We don't know Aunt Diana. The judge turned to Noah, who babbled happily. He seems comfortable here. He calls Thomas Daddy, Estella offered. It's the first word he learned after we moved in. Almost on cue, Noah glanced up, spotted Thomas, and called out, Papa, excitedly. The judge returned to his seat. Thomas noticed Diana was teary-eyed after hearing Lily and Noah's straightforward answers. The court will take a 30-minute recess, the judge announced. During the break, Thomas stayed with the kids in the waiting area. Marcus seemed quietly optimistic. Then Diana approached, alone. Can we talk? In private. They found an empty bench at the end of the hallway, away from curious ears. I was wrong, Diana began bluntly. I saw how they look at you, how they trust you, how safe they feel. When I heard about Olivia, about the kids, my first reaction was guilt for not being there when my sister needed me. I thought taking Lily and Noah was how I could atone, she sighed. But today, hearing them say they don't know me, watching Lily cling to Estella in fear, I realized I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking about me. Diana, Thomas said gently, you don't have to vanish from their lives. You can build a relationship over time, respecting their comfort. Would you really allow that, after I tried to take them from you? They're your family. They deserve to know their mother's sister. We just need to make sure it happens in a way that doesn't hurt them. Diana wiped a tear. I'm withdrawing my petition. They belong with you, all three of them. It's what Olivia wanted. It's what the kids want. When the hearing resumed and the judge asked for final statements, Diana stood up first. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw my petition for custody of Lily and Noah Carter. Judge Harriman raised an eyebrow. Would you care to explain? I've seen firsthand today how my niece and nephews are happy, safe, and thriving with Mr. Blake and Estella. Separating them would be cruel. I'm not withdrawing because I think I would lose, but because I truly believe it's best for them to stay where they are. And what about your future relationship with them? I hope to get to know them gradually, under conditions that don't disrupt the stability they've found. If Mr. Blake allows, I'd like to be a part of their lives. Mr. Blake, I fully support this arrangement, Your Honor. The kids can only benefit from having more family, someone who knew their mother well. The judge smiled, relieved. In that case, I grant Thomas Blake permanent custody of Estella Blake as her biological father. As for Lily and Noah Carter, I grant Mr. Blake legal guardianship, respecting their mother's wish to keep them together. Ms. Carter shall have visitation rights, always keeping the children's emotional well-being in mind. A few days later, Thomas's apartment felt lighter. Lily was in the living room drawing sunflowers, showing a natural talent reminiscent of Olivia's. Noah toddled around from one room to another, perfecting his newly found walking skills. Estella sat with Thomas, reading a story together. The doorbell rang. Thomas answered it and came back with Diana, who held a basket of homemade muffins and small gifts. Hi, she greeted, still a bit uneasy. I thought I'd bring some snacks and spend time getting to know everyone better. Lily looked at Estella for guidance. Estella nodded subtly. Your mom's sister? Lily asked, direct as ever. Yes. I knew your mom when we were both kids, like you and Estella. Can you do braids like she used to? Diana smiled, surprised by the question. Yes, she taught me. I can show you if you want. Noah approached cautiously, half hiding behind Thomas's legs. Diana offered him a small wrapped toy, which he accepted with a shy smile. The afternoon passed with Diana sharing stories about Olivia as a child, how she always drew on the walls, how she'd loved sunflowers since she was little. The kids listened intently, absorbing new pieces of their mother's life. Thomas hung Olivia's large sunflower painting in a prominent spot in the living room, the same one Estella had been selling when they first met. It looks perfect there, Diana remarked. Olivia always did have a special gift. When it was time for Diana to leave, the kids were visibly more comfortable around her. Lily had let her braid her hair, Noah showed off his block-stacking skills, and Estella talked about memories of Olivia painting. "Can I come back next week?" Diana asked at the door. "Yes," Lily said eagerly. "You can teach me more braids." "Of course," Diana promised. Thomas saw the mix of emotions in her eyes: grief for her lost sister, gratitude for the chance to know her niece and nephews, and relief that they were in a good place. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Thomas gazed at the sunflower painting. Like those flowers that always turn to the sun, his life had taken a new direction. It wasn't the one he'd planned, but it was infinitely better than anything he could have imagined. His newly formed family was officially united, not just by blood or legal documents, but by something stronger: love, choice, and the silent promise he'd made to Olivia through her children.